you. Ms. Hill, are you there?
Ma'am.
All righty. We'll go ahead and start. Apologize for the delay. Let's start my quote for this evening. A weak fact is still greater than a strong opinion. All right. Approval of minutes for April 6th, 2020, 6 p.m. Do we need to separate these two or vote for those together?
Well, it's just.
No, I just like to know if we need to do that. Okay, and then the regular meeting, April 20th, 2020, 10 a.m. Any questions with that, Mr. Kirby?
Were both of these by teleconference?
Mm-hmm.
Both of them? Yeah. Okay.
Any questions? Mr. Kirby?
No.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, any questions?
No.
Ms. Hill, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ard, any questions?
No.
All right, public hearings, resolution 2090, abatement of unsafe conditions at 2618 Pool Avenue Southwest. Mr. Lee?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you this evening?
I'm great. I hope y'all are as well.
Yes, sir.
This building was condemned on January the 30th of this year. We had complaints about the property in general that led to our being there, and then the discovery of the condition of the building itself. It's in extremely poor condition and is unsafe. We've been having some issues with the occupants of the building failing to vacate, but I guess if the council will authorize the demo next week, that will take care of itself. And we've met all of our notification requirements and then some, but it's a public nuisance, and especially to the buildings in the strip center behind it across the parking lot. They've had a lot of problems from there as well.
All right, Mr. Lee, any questions, Mr. Kirby?
David, do I assume by what you're saying the occupants are different than the owners?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Is the owner one of the occupants?
No, sir. The owner is actually in a nursing home, and we've been notifying her relatives that have a power of attorney, but they are different. Yes, they're related.
Have they given you any objection or feedback as far as owners?
No, sir. No, sir. And I spoke with one of the owners as recently as last week, and they expressed a desire to retain the ownership of the property itself, but I don't think they have the means to carry out the abatement, or they've not shown a willingness to do that as of yet.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, any questions?
No.
Ms. Hill, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Ordinance number 204400, pre-zoning request 134820. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Karen? Karen, are you there?
I'm sorry, I had muted myself.
I knew you were there. I just didn't know what happened.
I was talking away.
204000, please.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request to pre-zone a 10.97 acre piece of property to R3 single-family residential. The property is located at 204 McIntyre Lane, which is on the west side of McIntyre Lane. The proposed land use is single-family residential. The Windicator future land use is mixed neighborhood, and McIntyre Lane is a neighborhood connector. The zoning committee and the planning department had recommended approval to the planning commission, who are recommending this rezoning to the council. This is this pre-zoning to the council. It's important to remember that this property has not been annexed yet. They're waiting to get the results on the pre-zoning. We think there'll be between 20 and 30 lots here.
Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Ms. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
All right, ordinance number 204401, rezoning request, 134920. Karen?
Okay, this is a request, I think the next three, no. This is a request to rezone 29.64 acres from R3 single family to R5 single family patio homes. The applicant is Pew Wright McAnally. They're representing Greystone Properties. It's located on the north side of Point Mallard Parkway, west of the golf course. The proposed land use is residential, single family residential. The one Decatur future land use is riverfront mixed use. Point Mallard Drive is a city connector. The zoning committee and the planning staff both recommended approval on this, and the planning commission is recommending it to the city council. We've already seen this piece of property once. It's part of Legacy Cove, which is the new subdivision on Point Mallard Parkway. What they found was when they went and tried to make the size houses that they're going to be building work on the lots, that they needed a little bit more flexibility in the front and the rear. And so they're asking for a zoning that allows a 20-foot front, a 25-foot rear, a 5-foot side, and an 8-foot side.
Any questions? Mr. Kirby?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jackson?
Nope.
Ms. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
Nay.
Ordinance number 204402, pre-zoning request 1350-20. Karen?
Okay, the next three pre-zonings all go together. They are part of what will be called the Wilshire development, which is a roughly 200 plus lot subdivision proposed in the city. The proposed pre-zoning here is R3 single family. The applicant is Pew Wright McAnally, who are representing Wilshire Development. Property is located on the east side of Central Avenue Southwest and north of Pool Valley Road, outside the corporate limits of Decatur. The addresses are 3914 and 3918 Central Avenue. The property is currently vacant. The proposed land use is single-family residential. The one Decatur future land use for this area is mixed neighborhood, and the one Decatur street topology is Central Avenue as the city connector. The zoning committee and the planning staff both recommended that this be approved. The planning commission is recommending it to the city council.
And you said this one and the next two are the same property?
Yes, ma'am. They're all adjacent pieces of property. They're not all put together yet. For example, this one that we just looked at is 2 lots. There's another, the next one is a bigger piece that's all in one piece, and then I think the next one may be in 2 pieces. But they're all this, I'll give you the acreages when we get to them.
Okay. What was the acreage of this one? I'm sorry.
This one is 4.63 acres.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
Karen, you gave us 2 addresses, but it's 3 items on the agenda. Is there a 3rd address?
No, sir. It's 3 items on the agenda, but each one is different. On this one, we have 2 pieces of property that are not inside the corporate limits today and face Central Avenue. On the next one, we have a 20.9 acre piece of property that is in the city limits. And on the next one, we have a 12.5 acre piece of property. So there are 3 rezonings, but they're all different sizes, and this one happens to be 2 lots.
Give me those first 2 acreages again, please.
4.63 on the one we're talking about right now,
Yes, ma'am.
20.9 on 135120, and 12.5 on 135220.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mrs. Hill?
Ma'am.
Any questions? Ms. Hill?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you heard me say no, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Ard?
No.
All right, Karen, did you get, and you've given us, do you want to give us a description of each of those, or are we okay?
There are 3 separate ones, but this is the work session. That's entirely up to you at this point. I'll be happy to do it.
Request by council?
What was your question?
She's already done 2. Do you want to do the third one?
No, I've already done 1.
I'm sorry, we started the second.
And the third one might be worth talking about because it will require an amendment to the land use plans. That'll be done at the Planning Commission level, but you might want to be aware of it.
All right, let's take them one by one. Ordinance number 204403, 135120.
135120 is a 20.9 acre tract that is going from M1 light manufacturing to R3 single family residential. The current land use is vacant. The proposed land use is single family residential workforce housing. The one Decatur future land use for this one is flex employment, and we would recommend that we consider it mixed neighborhood. Flex employment does allow for some residential use, so we could also leave it alone, but just so you're aware of that. Central Avenue is a city connector, and Ryan Drive is a local street. The Zoning Committee and Planning staff both recommended approval for this, and the Planning Commission is recommending it to the City Council.
Questions? Mr. Kirby?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jackson? Nope. Ms. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Ordinance number 204404. Karen?
Okay, this is rezoning request 135220. The applicant is again Pewright McAnally for Wilshire Development. They are asking to rezone a 12.5 acre tract from RMH residential single family manufactured housing to R3 single family residential. The property is located east of Central Avenue at the end of a street stub that goes north from Ryan Drive southwest. The current land use is vacant. The proposed land use is residential workforce housing. This area is a mixed neighborhood land use, and Ryan Drive is a local street. Central Avenue is a city connector. This also comes to you with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission, or the planning staff and the Zoning Committee, and the Planning Commission does recommend this to the City Council. It bears mentioning that we've had approximately 4 phone calls from the residents in the subdivision there, and all of them were pleased with the proposed development and looking forward to it happening.
Any questions? Mr. Kirby?
Karen, do we currently have any RMH where there's residences indicator?
No, well, so there are 2 or 3, maybe as many as 4 manufactured homes on this property. We've also rezoned 1 piece of property in the Flint area to RMH so that she could bring in a manufactured home. And other than that, I am not coming up with anything off the top of my head today.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
You're welcome.
Mrs. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Ordinance number 204405, rezoning request 1353-20. Karen?
Did you just there were no questions. I'm sorry. I thought they were voting.
No, ma'am.
1353 is a request to zone. This is a piece that we've already annexed and we're applying a zoning to. 4.42 acres. The property is, the property owners are Yogi and Kenny Patel. They're asking to zone 2614 Old Moulton Road Southwest to B1 Neighborhood Commercial. The current land use is a convenience store. The proposed land use is a convenience store. The one Decatur future land use here is mixed neighborhood, and Old Moulton is a city connector. We did choose to recommend the B1 zoning to you because of the mixed neighborhood recommendation. That does allow for some neighborhood scale commercial development, but it doesn't allow for whole scale malls and shopping centers and that kind of thing. This does come to you with a recommendation from the Zoning Committee and the Planning staff for approval, and the Planning Commission is recommending it to you.
Any questions? Mr. Kirby?
Karen, on what you've sent us or will send us on this, will it show us the zoning that's on the properties next to this one?
You could already have that map, but the zoning immediately adjacent is outside the corporate limits on the east, west, and north side, and across the street on the south side you have R4 and R5, and then there are two R2 zoning districts on the other side of the property that's not in the corporate limits on the east and the west side.
So you have R4, R5 in rural county.
Yes, sir, and it is the Cowboys on Old Moulton Road, and you know there's those two car wash storage areas on either side of Cowboys, and those are, one of them is included in this request and one of them is not.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
You're welcome.
Ms. Hill?
No, ma'am.
Mr. R?
No.
Thank you, Karen, for all of those.
You are most welcome.
Resolution 20-0101, award bid number 20-013 for pest control services to Cook's Pest Control. Charles Booth.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
This is a standing bid of ours that ran its course and had to be rebid. We got 3 responses. One of them was a non-responsive. I didn't provide pricing for all of our buildings. Cook's is the lowest responsible bidder at a total amount of the term of the contract of $97,332.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Kirby? Mr. Jackson?
Nope.
Ms. Hill?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Thank you, Charles. Resolution
You're welcome.
20-102, 2020 JAG grant application. Alan?
Yes, ma'am. This is a 2020 coronavirus emergency supplement funding. This is the first part of the stimulus that through the CARES Act. This will allow the police department to purchase a drone. This is the drone that was actually in the port security grant that we talked about possibly pulling out. So we did pull it out of the port security grant, and it will pay for the 100% of the purchase. There could be some a little bit of that may not be covered at this point. What we're assuming that it will be, but it'll be much less than what the match on the port security grant would be. So we're requesting your approval to apply for this.
Any questions? Mr. Kirby?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jackson?
No, good stuff.
Mrs. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Thank you. On resolution 21-033, ALDOT agreement, SR 20 at Woodall Road. Carl, I'm assuming?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Carl, thank you.
The speedway that's being built at the corner of Highway 20 and Woodall Road is doing some modifications to the signal. I think they're actually moving a signal pole. And doing this work, ALDOT is requiring a maintenance agreement between us and them, like we have on many other signals that we do with them, and that's what this agreement is.
Any questions?
Carl, are all 4 corners of that intersection in Decatur?
I believe 3 of the 4 are. I'm not sure about the northeast corner.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
I think Carl's correct. I think the northeast corner is outside the corporate limits.
Which corner?
Northeast. Ms. Hill?
No question.
Mr. Ard?
No questions, but I think the one you're talking about is the 3M property, which is not in the city.
Correct.
Thank you.
Resolution, thank you, Carl.
Everybody.
Resolution 21-04 approved the repairs to the undercarriage for the D7E Caterpillar dozer. Wanda, you there?
I am. Good evening.
Good
Wanda
evening.
Tyler, Landfill and Recycling. Yeah, we're asking for you to authorize the repair for an undercarriage for the D7E dozer. Unfortunately, we were going to budget for it for this coming fiscal year, but the machine had other thoughts. And now it's a little bit over time, and also it's worn. And we need it repaired. It's an essential piece of equipment for the landfill. So we're hoping that you all will approve.
Any
Oh,
questions?
I'm sorry, the amount is $56,967.06. And this is going to be covered under a national ITA contract competitive bid. And it's funded under the landfill fund, and also under repair and maintenance under the landfill fund.
Is the machine operating now, Wanda?
No, it's not.
Okay. thanks.
Is there another machine that's operating in its place?
Yes, we have the 850 is running, but also we had to rent a dozer while this one's down.
Very good. I don't have a problem with where you're going. And what's your repair time going to be? Do you know?
They're going to have to haul it to their shop, so we're thinking 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Hill?
Mm-hmm.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you.
Resolution 2105, CDBG, COVID-19, substantial amendment approval. Alan?
Yeah, if we could, we probably need to do 2106 first. That's the consolidated plan, because the supplemental amendment actually is amending that resolution, actually.
Okay, so 2106, 2020, 2025.
Yeah, we need to do that one
CDBG,
first.
Common Plan, 2020 Action
Yes.
Plan approval. Go
Yes.
ahead,
Each year, HUD requires that we do a 5-year consolidated plan, and this is our 5-year consolidated plan that we are submitting. It'll be 2020 to 2025. So that's the plan that we worked with Dr. Bernice Hubbard to assist us with. So the consolidated plan is the first piece of that puzzle. The second part is the actual action plan, which is the first year of the 5-year plan. And that plan is actually what we will start on in 2020. And that's, our typical 20% for administrative, 15% for public service. We'll do $50,000 for down payment assistance, first-time home buyer. $97,700 will be for the Austinville Park improvements that we talked about. I'm working with Jason Lake. Jason and I have talked, and we're probably what we'll start with this 97 is we'll get a architect to do a master plan to see what we want to do with that park. Right now, it's basically all it is swing sets, pavilion, and tennis courts. Those tennis courts are not used, so we're going to look at taking those out, and then that's what we would get the architect to do, would be to do a master plan for that. And then the other project is just to what y'all approved last week, it was last week, was the STIRS Boys and Girls Club. That project.
Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
You're going to put a soccer ball catcher in place of the tennis court?
Well, that's the green space, or
Obviously, I'm being
yeah.
facetious.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson?
No, I don't.
Ms. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Thank you, Alan. Resolution 2107, approval of CLG grant application.
No. Well, going back to the supplemental.
Okay.
Yeah, the 105. When HUD approved when they opened up the COVID CDBG part of that, the CARES Act, they rolled it into the CDBG program. At the time our grant was due, we had to do a 30-day public comment period. when the COVID stuff came out, there was some concessions made. They went the 30-day to a 5-day public comment period. So that's why that we did the supplemental, basically wound up being on the same agenda. It actually, since we haven't approved it, it will just be part of the action plan. But because of the two different public comment periods, I put them on the agenda separately because there was a 30-day period for the original, 5-day for the other one. So it will actually just be part of the CDBG plan that we submit. And those, what we're going to use the supplemental money for is $74,000 for utility assistance, mortgage assistance, rental assistance for anyone who's been affected by the COVID-19. And then we'll do $210,000 small business loans for the COVID. Any business that's been affected by the COVID.
Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
Alan, on these two items, most years they are time critical for them to be submitted, aren't they?
Yes, sir. They
So
are.
You can make the case this would be urgent, essential business.
Yes, sir. I mean, yes, sir. It definitely is. They're time sensitive, and we're required. Actually, our CDBG, this was actually due to be submitted February the 14th, but because we didn't get because of HUD's not getting us our allocation until the end of February, it's due 60 days after they after they give us notice.
Thank you.
So yes, sir, it is definitely time sensitive.
Mr. Jackson?
No, I'll call it. I have to call you out.
Okay.
Ms. Hill?
Not at the moment.
Mr. Ard?
Yes, I do. Alan, what is the maximum size of the loan available to people?
$10,000.
And who determines who gets it?
We will have. I've done an application, Mr. Ard, and I will take those applications and I will process them. Our department.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
All right. Do you want to do the 107 hour?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is a CLG grant that we will apply for through the Historic Commission. As some of you may be aware, we've had some questions over the past 2 or 3 months about adding historic overlay to some sections that were not included originally in the Albany district. This will allow Caroline to do some surveys and for that inclusion, for a new overlay for Albany district.
What's the match? Small amount. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, that's,
disrupt.
I didn't pick it up. I should have, and I didn't bring it with me.
It requires a $10,000 match.
Yes, it is it's a 60-40. So yes, and it is $10,000.
Any other questions, Mr. Kirby?
Thanks, both of you.
Mr. Jackson?
Nope.
Ms. Hill?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
Resolution 2100 authorized the mayor to execute an agreement with Morgan County Commission Elections Division for the rental of election equipment in an amount not to exceed $3,200, funding source 014 budget. Stacey, anything?
Yes, this year we have an agreement with Morgan County for the setup of the voters list. It's the conversion of it. And it's .015 per registered voter. Now that's why it says may not to exceed, because those numbers will I'm hearing myself.
Is your phone?
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
And those numbers change because people typically either register right before an election, or you'll have a crunch between runoff, depending on the race.
Any
And,
questions? I'm sorry.
yeah, and anyway, so it's a voter history update, database update, but that number fluctuates a little, so that causes the,
Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
I'm
Mr.
good.
Jackson? Any questions? Ms. Hill?
No, not at the moment.
Mr. Ard?
Yes. Does that, Stacy, does that allow for changes in the dates? Because it's very specific for the runoff, for the election date, and if we don't hold elections on that day, does it give us any flexibility?
that is not addressed in this agreement. I think everybody.
Yeah, it didn't look like it to me
Yeah,
either.
it
I
is
think Herman
not.
needs to look at it and make sure that because of COVID-19 that any sort of, anything that comes up or flexibility we need would be covered in there.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm just saying that
I
there may be
understand.
something beyond our control.
This is true, just as this election for them is out of their control.
Thank you, Chuck. Ordinance first reading, ordinance number 204408, establishing the use of electronic vote counting devices for municipal elections. Are there any questions on that? Even though this is first reading, Mr. Kirby?
Stacy, have we always had to approve the electronic machines? I don't remember that.
No, this is the first year. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The electronic vote counting? Yes, because we're using a new device for handicap. It's called Express
So
Vote.
because there's a new device for handicap, the
You
state
need to
requires
have
us to approve it?
Yeah, because you have to take that and you have to submit it to the Secretary of State's office.
All right.
Mr. Jackson, any questions? Mrs. Hill, any questions?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Ordinance number 204409, Department of Human Resources leases extension. Any questions?
Well,
Go ahead,
this
Alan.
is Herman. This is extending a lease. This is that DHR building around 14th Street that they've occupied, and we've had a rental with them. In fact, it was done through a public building authority, and they're on a month-to-month now because we're trying to get the new lease in place, and because of the challenges we've had. So I would ask, since it's only, the only purpose of the ordinance is because it's declaring that we don't need the property, which we don't, because they're occupying and very good tenants. One of the good things about this particular lease is that they're responsible to pay for the repair and maintenance of anything that occurs at the building. For example, if the roof goes bad, then they're responsible to replace the roof. They're responsible to replace the HVAC. So I would ask that in order to keep continuity and the fact that it's got to go through several state agencies and the governor's office, that we do a double vote next Monday so we can keep this in a good transition form.
Herman, we had this conversation years ago, and I don't remember what the outcome was, but are they responsible for a parking lot as well, or just the building?
They're responsible for the entire property. The parking lot's part of it. Yeah, they brought that up. They asked, would we do the parking lot? And the answer is they were responsible to do the parking lot.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
But they're responsible for it. Sure.
Herman, you mentioned challenges. Are those challenges anything we need to know about?
Well, it's called COVID-19.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Hill?
I'm sorry.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Let's see. Next page. Ordinance number 204410, annexation 35920. Karen, you want to give a little overview on that?
Yes, ma'am. This is the annexation of the property that we pre-zoned at the last meeting. They are asking to annex 97.19 acres into the city limits of the city of Decatur. It will be part of the Morris Brothers plat and also part of River Road Estate. The property is located north of Upper River Road between Old River Road and Deer Road. The proposed land use is single-family residential. The future land use on the property is for mixed neighborhoods. So single-family residential is a very common use in mixed neighborhoods. There is some semi-attached zoning, but it is single-family semi-attached. The one Decatur Street topology for this is Upper River Road and Old River Road are both neighborhood connectors. And the commission is recommending this to the city council. Now, this is the first read, so I'm assuming that you'll want it to go to the mid-May meeting.
Yes, ma'am, it has to sit twice without.
After that.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions, Mr. Kirby?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jackson? Nope. Mrs. Hill?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Orr?
No.
Ordinance number 2044-07, approve annual ad valorem tax levy for FY20. First reading was held on 4/20/20.
Yes, council, this is your annual ad valorem that has to be approved because in the month of May. We get 18.6 mills, which is 6 comes to us, and it's 12.6 that goes to schools.
Stacy, does the county assess this in May, or when do they assess it?
They update, you know what, I'll have to check with them.
Because if the
honestly,
courthouse is
because-
not operating, the county may or may not be operating, will they assess it on time?
Well, yeah.
Can we find that out?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's got to be done, but we probably need to know.
All their
They do.
employees are working, they're not open to the public,
That's
but all
what
their
they are,
employees are
yeah.
coming.
So they probably are assessing on
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Mr. Jackson?
Well-
Oh,
I would think.
go ahead, Herman.
Well, all I was going to share with you is by state law, we have to do this in the month of May. So that's why it's in May. It won't go into effect till October.
Till
but it's
October.
just,
And
Yeah,
we
it
get
doesn't
that
start till
remitted to
October.
us by,
it starts with the tax year. We have to levy it in May under the state law, so it can go into effect in October.
right.
Thank you, Herman.
Mr. Jackson, any
Alrighty.
questions?
Nope.
Mrs. Hill, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. R?
Nope.
All right, I believe that's all we have on this agenda. Anything from the council?
Yeah. First, I want to mention the Parks and Rec folks. I had gotten a complaint about the condition of Wilson Morgan Park, and I was there within 24 hours to look at the complaint, and Parks and Rec had already been there to clean the complaint up, plus they'd had a break-in out there too on top of that. So I want to let you know that our Parks and Rec employees are doing the best they can. Those things happen, and it's good that we have employees that are working hard to get those things done. I know our solid waste people are trying hard. I think we probably need to give them some help long-term. I think more needs done and funded in that department. But I also want to compliment the clerk's office. School board members called me and told me they appreciated getting the notices of getting the SEI forms filed. So thank you.
Anything else from council?
Yeah, I think that as a council, we need to go back and negotiate. The council selected a person for the youth services director spot. I think we need to go back and negotiate that salary with the applicant who was chosen. I think the process has always been that the council select the person, the mayor negotiate that salary, and then we come back and we vote on that. The process, in my opinion, didn't go through properly, and I think that we need to have that applicant contacted and that negotiated that way. While I don't think that even if a negotiation was successful or otherwise, I don't think that we should fill that position. Still, my position hasn't changed on that, but I do think that we need to go through the process, as I said prior.
We need to add that as a vote or resolution, will we not? For this next agenda?
Well, the council's already voted to select the person.
They did.
I would say we need to be specific on asking for the negotiation of salaries. Since he has already accepted and then turned down, That would just be.
But there was not actually a negotiation.
No, there.
Herman, what do we need to do on this? Is it, do a resolution? Chip, okay. Is there any-
I'm coming back. Chip, he's welcome to answer. My understanding that you want to go back and renegotiate, I would say the council needs to give instructions to the mayor as to that. I think a resolution would be the best thing to do, yes. So that way you can clarify and state exactly what you're asking the mayor to do, along with the HR department. Eventually, it's the mayor.
Herman, thank you for adding that last part. I think if I'm going off of memory here, this tab, our first hire under this administration was John Andrieski, our CFO. The negotiations there were formed by Human Resources, Rochelle Sandlin, and then I think the next director level position, I may stand corrected on this, would have been landfill, and then that was also handled by Human Resources, Rochelle Sandlin. I've never negotiated, not that I'm not capable, I'm just saying that our Human Resources Department has done that in the past.
But Mayor,
Rochelle is always good to Rochelle is always wonderful to communicate with me, and I appreciate that.
But the fact is that just because you do something a certain way for a while and it becomes a norm, that's not the proper way that we've done it. That's not what protocol has been historically for our city. And things have been done that way, and they become the norm. That norm doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do it.
I concur with Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson, I would, if you don't mind, I would appreciate if you would get with Stacy and form that resolution to that.
Well, I think Rochelle and Herman needs to be involved in that, so we don't claim that that's not clear to both of us.
I'm just asking Mr. Jackson to make his point clear to them and to Stacy.
I don't have a problem sharing it. And Stacy, I don't want to put you in the middle of this. What I'll do is I'll share it with Herman.
Okay.
I mean, Herman's done this before, and this should not be rocket science. I mean, it's been done this way for decades, and so, again, I'll speak with Herman and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's fine. It's been, that works fine. But the Human Resources or Personnel Department has negotiated, but that doesn't mean that we can't involve others. And if I can, Mr. Jackson is correct. It's not rocket science. I just need to know what exactly that he envisions us doing. So
I just want us to go back to the way that things have been done previously, Herman, in the past. And as you are well aware, the Human Resources Department is not a department of our city. Our mayor is the chief executive officer. He's supposed to negotiate our contracts and our employment situations like that. So, I mean, again, I am simply asking that we do things the way that we have established them prior to a time when I see what we got off track.
That's fine. I just want to make sure it's okay for the mayor to be part of his input. You've just answered that, so I appreciate that. Yeah,
okay.
We'll get there. Just let me know.
Anything else from council?
No. Yes,
Ms.
Council
Hill?
President
Yes,
Christie. Yeah, I would also like to add a resolution to the agenda for the DYS director position as well. And I would like, since our policy, which was approved by the council, that HR handle offers and negotiations, I would like for Rochelle and her staff to move forward with a resolution to offer Mr. Johnson the DYS position as well. And that be on the agenda for a vote along with what Mr. Jackson's asking for.
Can I get you to get with Herman on that as well?
I'll be glad to get with Herman and Rochelle.
All right. Anything else from council?
Okay. Very good.
Mr. R., do you have anything?
I do not.
All righty. Anything from directors? Mayor?
Just kind of a phrase, all the business before the council tonight as it relates to zoning, annexation, all the development that's taking place. A lot of work here by our planning department, planning commission, and the council that's willing to make these things happen. So I say good job to everyone involved. I probably left someone out. It wasn't intentional, I guarantee you. This is good stuff.
Brad, I'm sorry you had your hand up. I didn't see it till then.
Just letting everybody know to stay on the call. We'll end the stream, restart another, but we'll keep the call going.
Okay, if you were on the call before with the consultant, just stay on the line and we will start a new stream. Hey, let me say this too. I think Wally Terry's official last day is this week. So thank you, Wally, for your years of service. Looking forward to working with you the next 90 days. So. All right.
Well, thank you, Paige.
Go ahead, Wally.
No, I was just going to say thank you. It's been a lot of moments that I'll always remember, and I think a lot of things we've moved the ball a little bit, and the staff gets all the credit for the way they've stepped up to the plate and made a real difference. And I will always be grateful for that. And thank you and the council and the mayor for giving me that opportunity. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Wally. All right.
This is Herb.
Oh, yes, sir, Hunter.
This is Herb. I just want to make sure, well, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Wally. I'll do that more later, but the main thing I wanted to ask, when Brad said stay on the line, did he mean stay on the line that we're presently on?
Stay on this call, please.
Yes, stay on this call
Okay.
for our consultant to
Thank
finish
you.
up.
All right, I appreciate it.
All right, Rochelle.
Is Alden.